yesterday, saw a comment from our friend Henry in the tailgate, grabbed it so that we could bring it into this show for a little bit more of an expansive conversation. Henry said, is there a fan base that has very unrealistic expectations for the upcoming year? Then Henry adds, as an Ole Miss fan, I am scared of the new, quote, standard of the program and how a great historic team might be, quote, disappointing. So if you want to address the Ole Miss side of this, that is obviously fine. But I'm also curious, as we cast a wider net, is there a fan base that you think is going into 2026 with unrealistic expectations?
On the Ole Miss point, before we pivot off to other nominations, that's a hard schedule.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that they're favored over Louisville to open the year.
And they spent 2 years getting the easy draw because the SEC ran back the same opponents in 2024 and 2025.
Right.
You did not cash it in all the way in 2024 because of the losses to Florida and Kentucky. You did cash it in, and a credit to Ole Miss for that. But it's time to pay the piper on the schedule rotation.
Like going to the Swamp the week after you have that emotional, huge game hosting LSU in Oxford, when Florida still has some athletes, we'll see how the quarterback works out. That's not easy. And then you got to have like a couple in a row where, do I think Vandy's going to be as good this year as they were last year? No, I don't. But I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff necessarily. And then Missouri should still be a decent football team. Like those two, you kind of have to show up for, or you could lose. And then you have to go to Texas, and then Auburn, and then Georgia, and then at Oklahoma. Like that, at Vandy, Missouri, at Texas, host Auburn, host Georgia, at Oklahoma, with no buys, is a pretty hard 6-game stretch.
And based on the success, coming from Henry's question, if they go 7-5, they're going to feel like it's a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And another factor to consider with Ole Miss, and this is something that we should consider with a lot of teams every year, they went 6-2 in one-score games. Ooh. So they were in a lot of close games, and they won the overwhelming majority of them. But they only won them by an average of 2.8 points per game. So
but do you know who went 1-5 in one-score games?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
The Florida State Seminoles.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Wait, I thought we were 0-4.
Listen. We'll fact check it. All I see is just a trend, this is just a trend arrow pointing up in Tallahassee.
Florida State was 0-4.
I totally agree.
You know who went 1-5? This is who I thought you were talking about. Penn State.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Auburn was 0-6.
So
was Arkansas.
Well, all right. So Auburn's record, I think, was user error. Arkansas might have been more structural and functional. I could see one of those flipping just a little bit more. We included this in the headline before the show, and so it's very interesting that one thing that has come up a lot. So where's Joey? Joey said Indiana's fan base will become delusional. Sincerely, an IU alum. Ryan also added, will Indiana fans have unrealistic expectations?
Ooh.
I don't
think so.
Yeah.
What are the expectations for Indiana fans?
I don't think they're thinking we're going to repeat. I think that's the only thing that would be unrealistic. I think they should expect to compete for the Big Ten championship, and I think they will. I don't think that's unrealistic.
I mean, if you look at Indiana's schedule, I'll read it for you. It's very, very tough. North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky to open the year non-conference. So another typical
dodging the ACC. Cowards.
Another real just a minefield of non-conference components. They open at home with Northwestern in Big Ten, and then they're on the road for Rutgers in Nebraska. And then it gets tough. They've got Ohio State coming to Bloomington, and the week after that, they're on the road for Michigan. Then they get Minnesota at home. Then they finally get a bye. So they've got to play a lot of games without a bye. So that could be a problem for them if they start getting banged up. After the bye, they've got USC at home. Then they're on the road for Washington. Then they're Purdue. That's a 9-3 schedule to me as a realistic expectation. I would bet that their win total is going to be somewhere in that 8.5, 9.5 range.
I think that they are a top tier Big Ten team. It is a realistic expectation to compete for the Big Ten championship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are disappointed if you lose your key games against other Big Ten title contenders and thus don't make it back to Indianapolis. But I don't think it's delusional at all. Looking at the roster and looking at the rest of the Big Ten, I just don't have that many teams I'm ready to slot ahead of the Indiana Hoosiers, even like throw in all of the Kurt Cignetti magic that you want to, in terms of your X factor. But I don't think it's ridiculous. Repeating as 16-0 national championships, yes, unrealistic. But being a playoff team, Big Ten title contender is realistic.
I mean, their expectation in their first three and their final three is 6-0 or 5-1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I don't think Michigan State has particularly crushed the portal, to be honest. So I'm not really expecting Fitz to hit the ground running there. Nebraska, I guess we'll see at Rutgers. Like that's a game I now expect Indiana to win, even though it's on the road. This Oregon at UCLA, Northwestern at Iowa, at Ohio State, and I'm reading off Penn State's schedule. Sorry.
I was going to say, I don't see them playing.
I was
Michigan
like, how is
State.
this? Yeah, I fat fingered this. Sorry, guys.
And that one was on the BudBot server.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a couple, but I don't know. And my instant thought was Kirk Cignetti just made life a lot harder on new coaches who are expected to turn things around right away. I thought of Will Stein at Kentucky because I think there's a lot of enthusiasm around that hire. You bring in Kenny Minchie. They've spent on a class that's top, I think it's 11 or 12 in the country. There's a ton of excitement. But if you look at their schedule, and I'm sure we would have done this again. This is where you kind of talk yourself into it. Like we probably did this with Indiana when we didn't even really pay attention because their schedule was pretty tough. And we looked at some of those early ones and that's a loss. But they play Bama and Texas A&M in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. And it doesn't get any easier from them. I like Will Stein. I think it's going to be an uphill battle. And this is where I don't know if the fan base has unrealistic expectations, but I think like making a bowl game this year would be a great season for Will Stein. And I don't know if Kentucky fans are going to have that same thought process going into this season.
Is there more focus on Will Stein and what he's going to do because Kentucky basketball is kind of maybe not crushing this year?
No, I think it's not a media creation, but I do just think there's a lot of people that are enthused by the new blood after that long Mark Stoops tenure, the success in the portal cycle. And, Kenny Minchie, yes, but to your point, Danny, a lot of portal additions that I think everybody on the outside was like nodding, like, oh, okay, I like that. And just the fact that after your results had kind of dropped off a cliff, to see it start to turn around, you're just going to be real quick to buy in. I don't know if the closest to the program. I mean, Kentucky fans are not pivoting off of the way paying attention to basketball right now because of a top 12 portal class. I mean, we'll see as things get going. And I like that they have early season tests so we can see where they're at. But I think that you're just seeing that a program that had seen a drop off, a tenure that had become stale, it just gets some new spark. And so people just rush to it. And they're like, these look like smart decisions. But the problem is there's only but so many wins in a conference, like who to your point, look at the schedule. Who's losing to Kentucky to allow for this big jump up for Kentucky?
Right.
Yeah. Like you might have needed those portal additions just to avoid the disastrous first season.
Because of what you had left over. Okay, who else do we want to add to the conversation?
I don't know what their expectations truly are, but knowing based on what kind of season they just had and where you're seeing them in like the way too early top 25s, Texas A&M. I think that you lose Colin Klein. Obviously, he is left for Kansas State, and I think he was a big part of that offense. But I also think, and we saw last year, your schedule played a pretty decent role in some of your results. We saw when they had to face tougher teams at the end of the year, They came up short. And you look at, again, I'll go back to records in one-score games. They were 4-1. They played in 5 of them. And you look at their schedule. They got Arizona State coming to Texas A&M and non-con. We'll see what Arizona State looks like. The Kentucky team Danny just mentioned. You're at LSU. You're going on the road for Missouri. You're going on the road for Alabama. You're going on the road for South Carolina. You're going on the road for Oklahoma. And then you also have home games against Tennessee and Texas. So, like, your November is at South Carolina, Tennessee, at Oklahoma, Texas. That's a tough stretch.
A lot of players lost off that team, too.
Yeah, and you lose a lot of people from your team, especially, like, on defense. But you also lose Concepcion at receiver.
So I'll give you a team that would have had a lot of players on the preseason run it back team for this year. It didn't have any on it for this coming year, and that's Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
At LSU, at Cal, host Miami, host Virginia Tech, at FSU, at Cuse, host Georgia Tech, at Duke, South Carolina. They also face UNC.
But I don't think Clemson's
I think that's a bowl team, but I don't know that's a bowl team.
I don't think they're a top 4 team in the ACC.
Well, so I have 11 of the preseason top 25 polls. Athletic, Athlon, Bleacher, CBS, ESPN, Fox, On3, PFF, Sports Illustrated, Sporting News, USA Today, and Yahoo. They're only ranked in 2 of the top 25 polls.
I don't think they should be in any of them.
I agree.
Right.
It's going to be a young team. They've still recruited well, but it's just you're asking that new blood to be able to come in and reverse what's been 2 to 3 seasons of underperformance.
And this is where I'd like to truth serum the other Clemson coaches and be like, all right, Vizina, is this a Dabo loyalty, you waited your turn thing, or do y'all actually think he can play? Because I did not love him as a recruit, and in the one spring game we got to watch also was not blown away. So maybe they've seen a lot in practice to where they decided to go with him. I'm guessing he's at least okay at practice because, even the loyalty thing from Dabo, you wouldn't, if he's awful in practice, I don't think you just do the loyalty thing and do that to the right. You have some duty to the other guys in your team to at least field a competitive quarterback.
Yeah.
But how much better is he now than he was as a recruit or, in what we saw in that spring game? I don't know.
Let's see. John in the tailgate says Louisville thinks they're playoff contenders.
They should.
They might be in the ACC.
Yeah. How much did they spend on that receiver? How much they spend on that receiver room?
Well,
$4 million.
You're rebooting quarterback again. You get Isaac Brown back. Remember, there was that, is Isaac Brown going to jump in the portal? Nagged by injuries through the season. Full. If he can get fully healthy and back to where he was as a promising freshman, they needed, with all the production that was gone at wide receiver, or that was leaving at wide receiver, to be able to reload. I think Louisville, sure. I guess Louisville's a playoff contender because Louisville's in the ACC championship conversation, and
because they're favored in all 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think they're favored over Ole Miss. Slightly, not by more than a field goal, I wouldn't think, but I think they're a little bit better team than Ole Miss is. Villanova, SMU at home, Wake at home, at NC State, FSU at home on a Friday night, at Cuse, Stanford, at Georgia Tech, at North Carolina, host Pitt, at Kentucky.
Jesus Christ!
This is not a cakewalk, but I think it's
lock it up.
If they beat Ole Miss, are they going undefeated?
This is what I'm saying. Yeah,
no.
I think there is a chance that Louisville's favored in all 12 games.
That might be fine, but this Louisville team is 0-2 against Cal in the last 2 seasons. Okay, they are capable of doing wondrous things on the football field.
A lot of this does depend on Lincoln Keenholz. We don't know who he is yet. So, but still, I have a certain amount of faith in a Jeff Brom quarterback to be able to keep things going. And you just look at the schedule. My God.
I was so disappointed with Miller Moss this season.
What are the odds they get to the ACC championship game?
High.
More than 50-50?
What are they? Let's see what do you think we have them listed yet?
I did not see conference title odds yet.
Not appearance, maybe conference winner.
Yeah.
I think SMU with Kevin Jennings back and what they were able to retain is going to be right there in that conversation. Louisville, it's who joins Miami, in my opinion. So you don't get to 4 without mentioning Louisville, but I don't think it's a shoe-in.
What do you think Michigan's expectations are? Their fan base?
Ooh, good question.
Slightly high.
Because I think they might be a little unrealistic too. I think if they think we're going to compete for the Big Ten again, I think they could compete for a playoff spot. But, I mean, I'm not sold on Bryce Underwood. And I love the Kyle Whittingham hire. I think it was the best option available. But I also just wonder where he is. I mean, he was ready to ride off in the sunset and retire. I think he'll be enthusiastic coming in there. But the schedule's not that easy. They do have Oklahoma early coming to town. It will not be an easy out. They could win that game, but the rest of the schedule is not. I mean, they have Iowa at home in that first 5 weeks, Penn State at home, Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. Like, they do play a lot of the better teams. Like, I think I think the fans are probably thinking 10 or 2 or better, and I'm leaning 9 or 3 or lower.
If I remember off the top of my head, we just mentioned it with Indiana, but I want to say it's like Indiana, Penn State, and Oregon all have Ohio State and Michigan in back-to-back weeks. There's multiple notable Big Ten teams that have to play both of those rivals in back-to-back weeks.
That's your no undefeated, right?
Because no team will go undefeated. That's right, Danny. Can Michigan nab either a look ahead or a hangover spot from one of those teams to log a big win that could swing a 9-3 to a 10-2? I mean, perhaps change their postseason outlook.
You're getting Oklahoma in September at home, but you're getting Oklahoma, who should be a pretty good team again. Iowa comes to town in September. I don't know what Iowa's going to look like next year, honestly. But then you get your bye, and then off of your bye, you're playing Penn State, Indiana in back-to-back weeks. And then you get to Rutgers, Michigan State, but then you have to go on the road in November to Oregon, and then you come home for UCLA, and then the week after that, you're on the road for Ohio State again. Like, that's going to be a tough schedule to go 9-3 against. You're literally facing Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State within a month time.
Yep.
The only counter to this is that I think where you get your 2 toughest games, being that they're both on the road, I think if you flipped Oregon and Ohio State and they were both in Ann Arbor, I still think you're losing both those games. So, like, if you have to play them and you're trying to go 10-2, I think it's easier to go 10-2 like this because you get the slightly more winnable home games: Oklahoma, Iowa, Indiana, Penn State at home.
Quick ones.
What do we?
Go ahead.
What do we think of LSU? Are they a little too high on the lane in the portal right now?
I think LSU is a playoff team, and I think if they're not a playoff team, then it's a massive disappointment. As long as the expectation is make the playoff, then I think that's realistic.
Yeah, because I was worried at first when their class was coming in that they were getting they got the quarterback, they were getting all the skill position guys, but they still hadn't really addressed the offensive line, and that was their problem last year. But then they bring in Seton. They got who's the guard that they brought in? Brought in a guard.
A guard
from Ole Miss. He was at Ole Miss last year.
Oh, I know you're talking about.
Anyways, they have addressed the offensive line, so I do think that there is reason. I mean, LSU fans might be screaming national title, and there might be a little out of whatever there, but I do think that LSU's got a pretty high floor next year.
Yeah, and when you've got Longstreet as your Levitt insurance, you're going to be you're going to be able to help out with that. Quantrell, Nebraska has had unrealistic expectations since 1995. If I was to cut through it, I don't think they've got unrealistic expectations.
They don't have unrealistic. They're focused on basketball right now. That's where their unrealistic expectations are.
The idea that Rink Mast is going to lead them to a Final Four appearance.
Yeah.
If LSU does not make the playoff, is there any team that is close that has not made the playoff in the last 5 years as far as like amount of talent wasted?
No.
Like, who would even be in the conversation for second place here?
That hasn't made the playoff?
In the last 5 years, yeah.
When was the last time FSU made the playoffs?
2014.
14. And I still don't think they compare
I
to
don't
the
think they're in
LSU
the
level.
same-
of
no, they're
talent.
Not
in
a
the same
talent
as
wasted in the last
LSU.
5 years. Not even close.
I'm trying to think. Just thinking of like teams. USC. If USC misses,
Florida.
Florida.
I would
guess.
still take LSU in the debate.
Yeah.
But I think that Florida is.
But I think these
worth-
are the only other teams you could.
Yeah. LSU, Florida, and USC.